Welcome back to part 2 of this episode. Thank you guys very much for joining me again on this teardown build. And now I just want to start on getting this clutch and brake off of my shaft and get the frame and engine mounted. Let's get started.
Where? I see you guys beating the tar out of these things. Look at that. Sheesh. By the way, I have this Skidoo for sale. It came straight from IKEA. Some assembly required. So, shaft turns good, inside's turned good, the track moves really nicely. That's super exciting. So, what I need to figure out is, so I have a keyway cut here. So I want to put the motor offset, run the sprocket here, or so that I'm not worried about, it tipping one way or the other. Take this off, move the sprocket into here, so it's coming more off the center of the motor, so more weight centered weight-wise, and then I'll have to cut another keyway on the key. So that's what I gotta decide. Not working really well, idiot. The plug fell inside this and plugged this up. I'm making a freaking huge mess. Alright. Don't do that. I pulled the plug and it went into the funnel, plugged the funnel, oil pouring out everywhere. Filled up the well. No bueno. Alright, I've got the crankcase here. There we go. Let's see what we got. Make sure that I don't rip the gasket when I get this opened. Have to be careful it's not stuck onto the case. That case cover. I can't imagine it's available. Count the teeth in that. Countable up there. Teeth seem to be in good shape. A little sludgy in there. Get that cleaned up. Put some new oil in it. That's good. wonderful. But what I got to do is I take that sprocket off. Or that shaft. So to take this crankshaft out, get the brake pad off, I think I need to undo this sprocket. I don't know if that's all that's holding that or not. The sizes are right. Stop that. Sure. Let me just.
I'm only going to mention this because I'm still bitter about it. About 7 years ago, I bought a gear puller, and it's brand new in a box somewhere in my shop. I have no idea where it is, so I had to use a screwdriver. But later, I had to go back to Princess Auto and buy another one. So now I have two. At least I know where one of them is. I decided I needed to take the whole bearing race and cover off because I'm not sure if this shaft is slightly tapered or not, or if yanking it out from the other side was going to damage the bearings. So I just wanted to be safe and I popped this off.
You know, videoing this stuff, even if you're not a YouTuber, so that you know how it goes back together, you can look at the video. Sometimes I've taken things apart, seem pretty simple, but then when you end up with 60 parts on here, you're like, why do I have a spare nut? And that's not good. So, this is over there, what's happening? Break the case.
Be really gentle when you're poking and prying this race cover off because there is a gasket just behind it, just slightly in there. I was very close to damaging it. I didn't realize it was there, but it's good to note.
Okay. Good to know. Rubber gasket there. I suppose I have to pull those bearings out to get that out. Maybe, I don't know. The bearing race came out. There you go. And I believe the shaft should be free. We have to deal with this side. Ooh, very nice stuff here on this side. Yes, I can loosen that. It is Allen set on bearing race here, so let's see if that's two. Put a little WD-40 in that.
Okay, well, this should be common knowledge, but for some reason it just slipped my little spaghetti brain for a couple minutes. You shouldn't hammer on the shaft with a steel hammer. I was like, okay, well, I'll just hit it on the end. As long as I'm protecting the spindles, everything will be fine. Everything will be fine. But after the amount of times that I hit it, by the time I wanted to put the sprocket back on, it had just enough flare that I had a bitch of a time to get it on there. The tolerances are almost nil, and just banging it a few times made it almost impossible. So just a precaution, use a rubber mallet or a leather mallet or hunk of wood on top of there. Just don't be, this guy right here. Ding dong. Stop it. Stop it now.
Hey guys, welcome back to shop. I gotta wait on a few things. My throttle cable wasn't long enough, so I ordered another one from Amazon. I ordered an 80-inch this time. I don't know what I was thinking when I thought that 4 feet was long enough. And according to math, 4 feet is only 48 inches, and really I needed 80. I don't know why I ordered the 48, but so that aside, I'm also going to order a 38 tooth sprocket for my 1-inch shaft. I've changed my mind. I was going to mount the actual sprocket in the center, and I had a 15 sprocket. I was working with a fellow in Ontario, and that's all he puts from the clutch to the main cam. 15 tooth sprocket. But I did some calculations, and I don't know, that might not work. And a lot of the fellows that have been doing it a long time all recommended like 35, 38 tooth. But if I put it on the inside, I'd have to start attacking into this case, and I don't really want to move into this case. And on the other hand, once I have the crankcase all put in, having the crank or the sprocket on the outside allows me to pull the 15 and put on the 38 or whatever, without having to work with my crankcase. So that might save me some trouble down the road. However, for every tip there's a tap. That means I'm going to move my motor over a little bit, and I'm not going to run another cam. I don't like the idea of having 2 working cams. It's just more gears, more chain to fail. So I'm going to have a little bit of weight to the left side. And so I got the crankcase on the right side, a little motor on the left side. So it's going to be out of balance a little bit. And what I'm going to do to counter that is I'm going to build a little frame off of here where I'm going to keep my auger when I'm traveling. So my auger will be here. There's a little bit of weight on the motor here, so I think that should counter it just fine. Anyway, I'm mostly just using it to drag my stuff out on the lake, so I'm not going to be carving, any kind of snow, so I'm not really worried about it tipping that much. Now, speaking of tipping, I found this frame. It was a piece of a treadmill that I used to make my sander, my belt sander with. I took the treadmill piece off and I made my belt sander. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but what a really nice piece of kit that is. I'll leave the link, I guess, over here. If you guys haven't seen that and how to make a fine adjustable belt sander for pushing thins through, for making really nice nice thins for your wood projects. Anyway, so this was the part that they held on to while they were running, and I'm looking outside going, well, it's light steel, it's fairly thin gauge, but it's strong. It's just a little wider than I want. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these bolts, take this aside for now. I'm going to cut off these corner pieces and keep these for after. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them, but I just like to prove you can find things and just repurpose them. They don't have to hit the scrapyard. This one's already powder coated. Sweet. All right, let's get started. All right, that's what I'll do. I'm going to cut these flush. I'm going to cut these ends off here. I'll just drag those ends off. Today I'm going to, this evening, I got a couple hours. I'm going to build a little tool to make my threaded fasteners, my threaded inserts. So I bought at Princess Auto there. So the tool for these is $60–70, but I'm going to make one with a couple bolts, or a bolt and a couple nuts. See how that works. So I'll get started on that. If you haven't seen a threaded nut before, or a threaded rivet before, here's what they look like. On these lines, there's a weak spot, so when you crush it, it collapses on that weak spot. And it remains threaded, so you can use it as a permanent position nut. There's the rivet. And there's the threads you can just see inside. First, find a bolt that'll fit in those. I think that's the size I'm going to use. I don't think I need any bigger ones. You ready? That should work. Perfect. Okay. So, what I want to do is put a couple of those in here. Say probably 3. Let's record this for posterity. Okay, so I don't know if it's going to work or not. I have the threaded nut onto a bolt. I have 2 washers and a nut that spins freely. So So I should be able to go down like this, put my wrench in here, and then push down on this, keeping it tight. And that should expand this. Fingers crossed. But what I want to do is put 3 of them in here so I can nut this down. Keep it nice and tight for now. Then I can weld this piece on. I might put 1 more of those nuts right here. That way when I'm working and building the frame, it'll be nice and tight, and then when I'm done I can take those nuts out, take the frame off, sand it and paint it, and then bring it back on here. Now after I do that, I have 2 main nuts that go into the main bogies here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a gusset and weld it onto here, so it'll be screwed into here in 4 places to give it rigidity up and down, just in case, because this aluminum is pretty thin on the tunnel. I don't want it to rip up. So drill a couple holes, see what we got. Rethink this. What's in there? Oops, that was one good. Still there. Still fitted. So, what did I end up doing? Here's what I ended up doing. You should have a bolt that's threaded the whole way, but once I put the nut on there, the one that spins freely, and another washer, and the rivet, which, by the way, you need to thread all the way so that there's threads exposed, because if you don't get that, it'll start to strip the thread. So anyway, that's my rivet tool, I guess. So, wonderful. Going good. This one, I think I made the hole a little bit too big. Should be okay. Hold it steady. Well, that's definitely not long enough, so whatever those are, I gotta add half an inch. But it's gonna work for now. Keep it in place. Okay, well, the rails aren't mounted, but they're cut. And I'm just trying to decide where the engine's going to sit so that I can see if this sprocket will work. If I put a bigger sprocket, will it work? I had to make sure that it was spaced off enough from the tunnel itself. So I just got a piece of thin aluminum there just to see where the motor will sit and where I'd have to build the mounts. And the mounts are very narrow on this motor, so maybe that wide. So I just have to build another cross member there and there, and I think that should be far enough back. It's a pretty small tunnel. I mean, what I wanted to do is have enough room to drop my bins in, one of my totes, so I have all my stuff ready. I'm gonna have to put a heat shield here or turn the exhaust, which I think I want to turn the exhaust anyway because I don't want that blowing in my face. So I will have some sort of compartmental thing here to separate my bin. So it needed to be forward enough, but not too far forward that it's really, really hard to steer. So that should be okay like that. So really there's more humming and hawing involved in this build than there is build. I bet you there's maybe 4 solid hours into this so far. Most of it out of the other 10 was just trying to figure out if I do this, will it ruin what I was thinking earlier to make this work, and all that ruined that. So basically I've only got like 4 hours into the teardown and cutting these frames. I had an extra 30 minutes to take apart the crankcase, put it back together, make sure all the teeth are good. It was really good shape, so I'm happy about that. So, and the other thing is I need to be able to have space to build a frame because I want to have, you know, some sort of a protective roll bar over this. I don't know exactly what I'll be doing for that. Some sort of angle iron. Heavy stuff. That looks like quarter. That's a quarter millimeter. So that's 5 millimeters. 5 millimeters. We're going to want it to go across, but we're going to cut out the side piece so it sits flat, and then the other piece sits down. So we want 16-inch pieces times 2. And if you don't have a paint pen, you should get one. Okay, I've been doing a lot of hemming and hawing, so I'm going to show you what I've done. I'll take this close up. So I took this very, very heavy angle and I cut the edge out of it so it fits flat, and it's slightly proud. So instead of grinding the entire thing like a 1/4 inch off, I just put a little flare down on this so it sits flat on this piece here. I'm going to be welding it anyway, so it's not going to much matter. I've pre-drilled 2 of the holes so far, and 2 of the main bolts are going to sit underneath this main brace here. So what I've done is I've drilled a bigger hole so I can drop the bolt into it, and then run in, and then drop that into it, so I can raise that up and screw it down on the motor. So those should stay there. It'll be a little awkward to get up, but I'm thinking about once I know it's exactly where I want it to be, just maybe put a quick tack weld here just to hold it in place, just to keep it from dropping down. So I've added a couple screws, pre-drilled a couple holes just to keep everything in place, so they're right where I left them. That way, where I've cleaned these areas up, I'm going to tack weld these and get them to stay in place. And then the plate, I've pre-drilled the plate. So I've got the slot hole, the main hole, and those holes there. So, and I've got these kind of pre-drilled. But I want to make sure they all line up and stuff before I permanently weld all this together. So that's where I'm at right now. I changed this sprocket. You might have noticed, you eagle eyes at home. This was a 15. I'm not happy with the way the ratio is, so I went down to the Princess Auto, my local farm store, and I think, what is it? Harbor Freight is your guys' American version. So now this is a 32 tooth, number 40 sprocket, number 40 10 tooth on my clutch, and that's direct to the, I think it's a 12 and then a 39. So it gives me a 6.9 or a 7.1 ratio. So not going to be high speed, it'll be more torque. And according to the sheet, it should get up to about 15 kilometers an hour, which is faster than I can walk. That's for sure. Okay, there. I just made a little template with this cardboard. Those do not seem to be square. Oh, yeah, square. Okay, well, nothing too serious right now. Just gonna do some light tack welds in case, nothing works. But I do have them screwed into place and they're nutted into place. Once I get this welded, I am gonna open this and tack weld those nuts there. I want them to be proud. So I increased the size of those now. They're all 3/8. It's gonna go ahead and tack weld them. Alright, I got this tacked. It's bolted down. And it's square. I got the chain on. I had to add a spacer. I kind of knew it was coming because I was told from a few places online that the number 40 chain will kind of rub on this Type 30 clutch. So there's a spacer on there. I actually put my feeler gauges in there, and it's the same all the way across. So this is a be right where my sprocket will sit, and I got the number 40 32 tooth on there and the number 40 chain now. So she's lined up. She would probably go if I took a link out and started it up. So one thing it did change though is how I'm going to paint it. I was going to pop everything off when I painted it. It looks to me like it's going to be a tape job, painted in place. Not that big of a deal. The base, the top is going to be all black and a rubberized coating, and the sides will be easy to paint, taped off. So the top piece, I'm struggling on. I want to protect the motor, but I don't want it to come out too far. I want to kind of have a case that I can take off. So I'm going to have to play with a little bit of angle iron and kind of box it in somehow maybe, or just leave it open. I'm not sure. I like the idea of it being enclosed or at least protected so that I have some form of something that comes out of here. So if it does roll over on something hard, it's not going to bust my clutch or my cam. So that I'm going to have to figure out. That's going to take the rest of the summer. It is only June 3rd or 4th. I have some time.
Thanks for joining me on episode 2. I know it was long, but it's important to note that there's a lot of adjustments that need to be made. Now, there's definitely a lot of humming and hawing on every type of sled you get. It's going to be different, so you got to spend the time to think about it. Anyway, it's going to start to get fast and exciting in part 3, so stay tuned. It should be out shortly. Have a good night.